Breaking barriers. Breaking barriers.
Well, and here, oh, you know what? I did it again. Look at that. I always forget to take that off these days.
I was
Hello,
like, there might be
guys.
something going on. Hey guys,
Yeah.
welcome to Breaking Barriers, where we prove that it is possible to be comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations. My name is Kimberly Kay. I've got my co-host Rev McInnes here, and also our loyal and always ready to jump in, ride or die, Jason Dutch from Dig on America. And tonight we are going to be diving just into the topic. So tonight we're not actually going to be doing New or Now. Dino is off tonight. He's taking a break. We'll see him back next week where we do maybe a year in review. We might drop a little different topic on you. But tonight we are doing a topic that was near and dear to my heart. I had a little pre-production call with Rev. And tonight we're going to be talking about our opinions on the NFL and some of the safety things that are going on. We're going to jump right into this topic. As most of you may know if you watch football, if you don't know, that's okay. We forgive you or we praise you, depending on what your idea of football is. But we would just like to say, first and foremost, we are with Damar families, Dafar Hamlin's, Damar Hamlin's family. Sorry, little tongue twister for me there. And we do have all the things, good vibes, the prayers, anything that you could put toward him tonight. So to catch everybody up on why we are having this topic, last night, pretty late for me, I got a text message from a couple people that I follow when I used to do statistics for football in college. So I used to run statistics and patterns for college football, and nobody really knows that. So it's a little fun fact for me.
Did you do a
University of Utah.
post-up pattern?
Yeah, I did. Well, I don't know about post up, but did you cross the
hook.
lines? What'd you do there? So it was my job to just look at the statistics and give feedback on that every week during football season. Good time. I also was a cheerleader in high school, so all of this is very, very much in my blood, right? Not in my blood, but in my DNA, I guess. So basically, for what we wanted to talk about tonight is last night. I guess Rev found out a different way, maybe Jason a different way, but I got a text from a friend that said, "Hey, we were just talking about this last week." And I was like, "What is it?" And I got a link that said that in the Bills and Cincinnati Bengals game, they were about 6 minutes left in the first quarter of that game last night. Big game for both sides of them. This is a big game when it comes to if they're going to get a bye for the playoffs. So a really big, really big game. Both sides really looking forward to it. A lot of young players on both of these teams. You've got Josh Allen, you've got, Burrow on the other side. A lot of really great defensive guys on these teams. So you have a defensive player, which is Damar Hamlin. And I was sent the video and I didn't know what I was looking at first. What we saw in that video, if you're really sensitive to these things, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go check it out. You can just bypass that. But there was, he's doing defense things as defensive players do, and he's a great one. And he's really good friends with Stephon Diggs, who's also from the Bills, great wide receiver. And he goes after T. Higgins, which is another great wide receiver on the Cincinnati Bengals. You guys are familiar with these players. If you're a fantasy football team player, we'll get into that with Rev and Dutch in a minute. So what happened was, I'm watching the video. I'm trying to understand, is it like another concussion situation? Because that's what I was just talking about with my friend in my PhD program is the psychology that I talk about and different things with brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, having a partner that deals with these things. So we were talking about traumatic brain injuries and this moral dilemma with the NFL for some of us. How the last couple of years we're trying to, we're pulling sides of like, do we really support it? Is it really hard for us to support such a high, contact sport, and just the results of dangerous injuries are so huge compared to other sports. So I thought it was going to be something like that. I'm thinking like, oh, it's a concussion protocol like we saw with Tua from the Miami Dolphins, and everybody had such a big deal with him coming back to play. But what we saw was he was hit. He came in to tackle T. Higgins. T. Higgins, as most people do when they're going to be tackled, he leaned in with his shoulder because you're not supposed to do head-to-head contact if you don't follow the sport, just trying to give you a little bit background. So he leans in with his shoulder and he immediately gets hit he in the chest, Hamlin does, and he falls, rolls over, makes the tackle, stands up, adjusts his helmet, and immediately falls again. And he's motionless. And I'm getting chill bumps now. I was really uncomfortable at what I started watching because it became very apparent that this young man was not moving. It also became apparent at some of the angles that you could look at that they were hovered over him. So at that point, you recognize that there were some reports coming out that they were giving CPR. Now, you don't know what happened. You don't know if this is spinal injury. No one understands what's going on yet as of last night when this was all happening. So what we found out today is that he was actually resuscitated twice, once on the field and once he also got to the hospital. There's lots of different things that people are thinking it was. There's some, I guess, accidents that are rare where if you get hit right when you're in the upswing of your heartbeat rhythm, then it'll cause it, spinal cord separations, many different theories. We are not doctors. We are not experts in this field. That's not the topic we're going to get into tonight. But that is what happened. He needed help breathing, so he was intubated. They did allow his mother, who was there, his family was watching. This is such a horrible thing. The part that I'm going to come at from tonight, and we'll see how Dutch and Rev take this on, is I'm going to come from the psychological trauma, the collective trauma that we watched all these young men. You saw the faces of Stephon Diggs. You saw the face of Josh Allen. They were visibly shaken. They were crying, they were, panicking. There was lots of panic attacks on the sidelines. There is some things we'll get into. The NFL says that they were never thinking about not having the game canceled. They were always going to cancel the game. I call bullshit on that. Not sure that that's true, but that's what they said, what they were going to do. There was this idea that there was 5 minutes, that the guys were going to go back after 5 minutes after they left the field. Now, mind you, all of these guys just watched somebody that they really love, that's their age, that's doing exactly what they're meant to have to go back out and do, just maybe lose his life. A lot of commentators said things like, did we just watch a guy die on Monday Night, Football? And that's kind of what it looked like. You didn't really know what was going to happen. So basically, the commotio cordis is what, thank you, Killmonger. Also welcome. So great to see you and Constance. So yes, commotio cordis is exactly what most people are thinking it was. Most of the online Twitter doctors have said that, but we won't know for sure until there's more going on. So to wrap this and then kind of bring everybody else into the conversation, just looking at Twitter today, very fascinated at this, as I've just been trying to reconcile my own opinion about the sort of deathly aspect of this. Now, we did not have a death on the field in real time since 1971. I think I know his last name was Hughes. He's got a son named Brandon that lives in San Antonio that I do know of. That player was played on the Lions, and he in regulation play with 60 seconds left in regulation play back in the 70s, very different NFL back then, grabbed his chest after making a long run and immediately fell and died from a cardiac arrest. There was something that had gone on there as well. So that was the last time we saw someone die. But since then, we have had numerous reports that 99% of people that have been tested from the NFL have some form of CTE. I'll pull that up of what that means. But that's some sort of brain damage due to the sport. On top of that, we've also seen like copious amounts of injuries, copious amounts of spinal cord injuries, career-ending injuries. We've seen people that have also had, brain trauma. I'm thinking of Aaron from the Patriots that ended up murdering somebody only to kill himself. And then we find out later that he also had problems with his brain and concussion protocols and all of these things we're going to get into tonight. So that is what brought us to this topic tonight. We are normally a more generic open topic type of program, but this one was something that was kind of on my list for a while, and we decided to bring it in tonight, and we just so happen to have the graciousness of Dutch to join us. So I'd love to welcome Rev and Jason to the podcast, of course, and also get their thoughts as we start this discussion. It's going to be a very roundtable discussion tonight. It's not going to be really led by any sort of one person asking the questions. We're just going to give our opinions and also engage with you in the comments. So welcome.
Hey, great to be here.
Thank you. I am happy to be here with you.
So how did you guys
figure
that? How did you guys find out the news last night, or was it just today that you knew what was going on?
Well, generally,
it was trending on Twitter. So
yeah, generally speaking, I watch pretty much every NFL game. Yesterday was a bit of an anomaly for me because I'm a very selfish football watcher, and I only watch when I have, either the Bears or Dolphins are playing because I like kind of both those teams. But I usually watch for any fantasy football implications, right? So, it's as it so happens, I was in the finals in 2 of my leagues in the championship game, and neither of them were a game, right? Like in one game I was losing by 50, the other I was winning by 45. So like those games were over. So I didn't even tune in, and we were selling our house, and I've been doing as I was telling the guys, I've been doing nonstop work. And I turned in, I'm like, well, just let me take a peek and look. And it says suspended. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? So then I went into one of my chats and my fantasy football league teams chats with the other guys I play with. And like, they were talking about it. And it was pretty shocking. There was a lot of talk about Skip Bayless, about how Skip Bayless was like, talking about, when are they going to make up the game? And, there's a lot to this situation beyond just like what happened to Damar Hamlin, as far as like with people's reactions that I think are very interesting. Though I will say that 95% of everything that I saw, which was pretty refreshing in this case, was like exactly what you would hope to see. There's always a few detractors out there who are like, oh, my fucking team was down by 1 point, and I was about to win, and those types of things. But it wasn't as many as you would have suspected. So that part at least was refreshing.
Yeah, I agree. And then we'll go to Rev. I saw a lot of prayers. I did see the Skip thing, interestingly enough, which I think is a greater lesson and a talk for another time, perhaps, is that we often don't remember that Twitter is short form. And so Skip Bayless made 3 tweets. And so people really jumped on one tweet without, and I'm not defending anything, but I'm just saying what I saw is that he did make one tweet, and it was like, hey, they absolutely did the right thing, and praying for the family and all of that. But then the other tweets underneath that sounded like they were insensitive. So just a good example that, every tweet you put out, you need to think about, I guess, if people are going to see it as a lone tweet or if they're going to go back and read other things. And then with the other part of it, it really kind of bothered me, not enough to like cause any drama, to see people going, I had Stephon Diggs on my team, and he's really coming clutch on a lot of my games where I did not make some good choices at putting some people in for fantasy football. And so I had Stephon Diggs on my team, and I was like, okay, it is what it is, moving on. And I ended up winning by 1 point, thank goodness. But the funny thing is that I did see some like insane comments like, are you fucking serious? Like, I mean, like, what are they going to do anyway? Like, just like end the game. And it's like, they're not there. And people need to remember this. Fantasy football people, for real, like if you've been in the Yahoo or the ESPN chats, you always notice that people think that the players are supposed to play for them. Like somehow they believe they got to play for their team. So it's just funny to watch people think that the players are out there supposed to be doing what's best for your fantasy football team, when in reality, they got to win football games. So if that means they got to switch around who gets what ball, and if it's a committee of the running backs, whatever they got to do to win is what they got to do. So I saw a lot of that just in passing, but you're right. I saw a lot of refreshing behaviors. And then just the question of, did the NFL actually make the decision? And as we go to Rev with this, we saw the players on each side just literally, and I work in trauma recovery. So I saw trauma. I saw men that were, locked into flight, freeze, run, whatever. And some of them were, fight or flight, running. Some of them were in freeze mode, just disbelief. And then you saw Sean McVay and what's the other coach? Not Sean, Sean. And what's the other coach? I can't remember. Zach. Zach comes across the field, talks to Sean, and Sean's, obviously disheveled and very upset. And he's like, I don't think this can happen. And I think it was a wonderful example of how those two men, made a decision for their players. Their players were speaking up about it, and they made that decision. And I think when Sean said, I'm just not going to put my team back out there, and Zach said, okay, that was a great example of coaching in the NFL. So
I think you mean Sean McDermott, though, not Sean McVay.
Yeah, it wasn't McVay. So thank you for clarifying that. I was like, I know it's not Sean McVay's best over with the Rams. So, and he's younger. But Rev, as you come into this, what were your thoughts as this got brought up? And I know we talked a little pre-production earlier. I know your son is in football. He's really good at it. He's good at all the sports. Shocker. So how are you looking at this from, a future perspective, and kind of what your thoughts were?
Well, I'll do what I do often is I'll go right back to the past before I go to the future. In that I took a hit in my sophomore year playing football that put me in an ambulance because as I was hit, I spun and there was a kid below me and I bent my back on his helmet. He was fine, but it turns out it must have been all muscular, but I couldn't move. I was, just in shock. I mean, it hurt. It was a bad injury, and pulled off the field, in an ambulance and everything. So everybody's all freaking out. I'm freaking out when I get into the hospital and the doctor's poking my feet with his pen. And he's like, can you feel that? Yeah. And I'm like, no. And he's like, because he was like a resident or something. I'm like, crap, I'm paralyzed, and I was fine. So I know those football players are a family. And so, even when you're on opposing teams, it's a family environment, and, there's competition in every family, but when somebody's goes down, I mean, that's tough. And then of course, having family there and everything. And you brought it up. I think that's the kind of the topic of tonight's show is I do have he's not the topic, but I do have a 9-year-old and he's not actually playing yet, but he's got a gun. I mean, that kid can just, some kids the other day got behind him when we were playing catch on the field, and they were older, and he was far, for a 9-year-old. And they're looking at him kind of smirking like that kid is not going to be able to throw it to his dad. I mean, perfect spiral right in the chest. The kid can throw. And I really want him to be a QB, but I don't want him to be a QB, because he's good. He's smart. And, everything we know about football, these guys get paid a crap ton of money, but it's not like baseball where you get $22 million a year for 15 years. You know what I mean? Not that it's not bad to have tens of thousands of millions of dollars, but it is a sport where, they pay you knowing you're not going to last so long based on a position and that kind of stuff. I mean, you're negotiating your contract as a certain type of player and saying, look, I'm lucky if I get 5 years out of this, and I'm one of the best in the league.
Especially running back.
Yeah. I need to be well compensated. So,
and it's Russian roulette. Like at any point you go to play, it could be anything. So you're playing, you're getting paid for Russian roulette. And that's a lot of pressure.
Well, and it's tragic. Just when you see those quarterbacks that are just the best ever, but they you look at them funny and they break it, they pull a tendon or something. But go ahead, Dutch.
Well, I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot to this. And so the NFL I don't like using the word violent sport, but it's a physical sport, right? There is things that can happen on the field that you know, if they happen in real life, there'd be a charge for violence on you, right? Like, so, you know, you're not allowed to run around and spear tackle someone on the street. That's obviously legal in the NFL. Um, so I want to touch on a couple quick things here. First of all, none of this is unique to football. You know, rugby has injuries. Hockey players have been hit with pucks and passed away. There was a case, you know, a year or so ago that there was a 19-year-old kid, professional hockey player in Russia, who was hit by a puck in a game and died. You know, if you back in the 80s, a player had his throat cut by a skate and almost died, almost bled out on the ice. You know, I play competitive softball. And in softball, it's very, very frequent that people will die playing softball, like pick up recreational beer league softball. A lot of times because there's beer involved, but you know, it's you know, especially I was a pitcher, right? And there's a lot of people who are softball pitchers, and in baseball, you're 59 something feet away. In softball, you're like 40, and you know, the ball comes back at you at 105 miles an hour. They actually sell a vest. I wore a face mask. A lot of people will be like, no, I'm so cool, I don't need a face mask. You know, I've been hit in the face with a softball with a mask on it, and it hurt, right? But they actually sell a vest for baseball players. It's usually marketed towards baseball players, where it's like an Under Armour shirt, and then it's got a gel pad here over your heart. You can buy it at Dick's Sporting Goods, right? They're like $60, and they're there to prevent this particular condition, because especially if you're a softball or baseball pitcher and you let go of that pitch and you're not in the best defensive position and somebody line drives a ball right back at you, it can very easily hit you anywhere in your body, including in your chest, and cause this. And it happens very frequently in baseball. You know, I have never heard of it happening in football before. But you know, when you watch the shoulder hitch, which was completely legal, like the NFL teaches you, don't lead with your helmet, lead with your shoulders, because it's far safer. And you know, guys aren't supposed to get penalties for leading with their shoulders. They get penalties because the NFL is about protecting the head, as well they should be, right? So I don't want to unfairly characterize the NFL with this one, but at the same time, when you have a player who goes off the field and can't give a thumbs up, that game needs to stop
immediately.
In any sport, right? And like this was a criticism I have of the Tua Tagovailoa when the second game where he had a concussion. He could not give a thumbs up. He was completely out of it. He was falling all over the place. That game should have at least been suspended, and they stopped the game for like 10 minutes. And like, okay, get back to it. And then the Dolphins ended up losing because they're worried about their guy. You know what I mean? So it's like, so you have a lot of dynamics there. And the last thing I want to touch on before I just throw the ball back to you guys is immediately within 5 minutes of this player collapsing, the anti-vaxxers took to Twitter, you know, with, oh, look, this guy must have been vaccinated. And it must be the vaccination, because look, another person, see, it's mass genocide. We've been telling you, here it comes. He's the first of the walking zombies. And you're like, we saw the collision with our eyeballs. And then after that, he fell down. You're going to blame a vaccination on this? So like, people are sick. They are sick people to push their fucking agendas.
No, like, this is a whole other thing, but I do think they're sick. And I don't mean like, oh, they're just sick people, and it's like an adjective we use. I genuinely think that there's a level of illness going on. And because people like this that believe this way don't present, and I don't know if you guys know about this, I think I spoke about it, but I had a best friend 6-7 months ago attack me. I was pushed across a room and hit the back of a door because she believes these conspiracy theories. Now, when you look at her, she looks like an Instagram model. She's beautiful. She looks like a normal person, but she has severe mental health issues. And so she's really wrapped up in these cult-like mentalities, conspiracy theory mentalities. There's some things that I believe, honestly, there's some things that I believe in. I'm like, I believe in aliens, I believe in whatever. but she's one of those people. And who knows why it happened. You know, I've still got a case going on with that from Austin, so I won't get too much into that. But her brain was not exactly properly working, because every time she got deeper down these rabbit holes of these things, everybody that looks normal makes her think that she's normal. So you get on Twitter and you're looking at people that are anti-vaxxers and all that, and they look like me. They look like you. And it looks like normal. And they have families and they have normal stuff. I made it real about this with the anti-vaxxers and the way that they speak. And this guy that was like Heil Hitler over at this airport in Seattle. I don't know if you guys saw that video a while back. So he was yelling Heil Hitler and yelling at the attendant that she was a reptilian and all of this. And I was like, hey, we as a people, we need to start talking to our friends and family when we kind of see it at the beginning, because they get too far down the rabbit hole. It's really hard to pull them back up. I was shocked at how many people that have been following me for a decade actually believe this shit. So I was just really taken aback. There were people like, oh, honey, stick to makeup tutorials. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, what the fuck am I watching? I've known you people for 10 years. And so we're losing a lot of people to this sickness. I do believe it's a sickness. I think there's some form of things going on mentally. It doesn't mean that they're diagnosed with a certain mental illness, but I think there's some unwellness going on. I know that's for time, another talk, but you got that. I saw that. And then to add to what you were talking about with the baseball thing, the softball thing, I saw a lot of comments about that too. I want to cover that because people know that I play professional fast pitch, and I have a broken nose because of that exact thing that Dutch talks about. So you see this break right there, line drive to the face with the softball. Definitely did same thing you said. I didn't want to wear the face mask because I was like, oh, I'm cooler than that. No, bitch.
No, Kim, stop lying. You're a reptile.
I'm the reptile. That's what it is. Let's just give it up. Like,
I've been called a snake.
Just tell the truth.
I mean, I've been called a snake. So, I mean, I think I have been a little sneaky at times. I'm a little petty and a little shady. But so I've got that, and then my sister broke her leg, snapped it into very violently. My dad has a big plate in his leg from softball playing. I have a metal plate in the back of my neck from literally going up to catch a ball, falling back, and literally getting whiplash, just landing backwards. So, you know, we can make a lot of arguments for those things, but so I'm not going to exactly, like you said, the NHL as well, Major League Baseball as well, soccer. My son was like one of the fastest little men. He was younger, shorter, but super fast, did all the things. But we noticed that he had gotten injured quite a few times as well doing that, people elbowing and weird shit like that. So he went a different direction. Where we're at now is that the NFL has really, they've always been this way, but they've really, really made it like sort of this double-faced thing, which is we're all about the protection of the players, but we're actually all about our money. So it's Richard Sherman, and I'll pass this over to you, Reverend Dutch. Richard Sherman came out and talked about this. Now, I come from Seattle Seahawks fans. Now, not when it was just like cool to be one. You know, this is like 2001 is when I started being a Seahawks fan.
To be a Seahawks fan.
Yeah, it's always been cool, bitch.
I mean, the Bears, you know, I gotta say.
I'm like, I mean, give me my credit. So, just kidding. But so
she's from the Steve Largent days.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Russell Wilson came in, and I actually had just so much inspiration. That period of time during Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom was a very special time for a lot of us. That leads me to the Legion of Boom. Just the name in itself should be a clue that that's fucking terrible. The Legion of Boom. And Cam Chancellor was on that. Earl, whatever his name is, I can't remember. We share a birthday. Earl was on there. You had Richard Sherman, and you had Bobby Wagner. You had a lot of people that were known for this Legion of Boom, and they were known for hard hits. They were known for snapping the football out of people's hands. They were known as, like, if you ran up against them, you like bounced back kind of a thing. Like, that's what they were known for. That's why we won championships because and playoffs, because it was the defense. Not so much Russell Wilson during that time fully, played his role, definitely, but it was the Legion of Boom, but they were nasty. They were known for that like hard hitting type of thing. And back then I thought that was cool. I'm a big replay girl. I'd watch the replays and be like, oh shit, damn, oh wow. Something switched in me though when I watched one of our players literally sever his spinal cord almost, and he lost his entire career 3 games into his season as a rookie. And I started looking more into it. And then I started looking more into the Patriots, Hernandez, Aaron Hernandez, who committed murder and then hung himself in a cell. And I was just like, what the hell? And then I'm friends with a couple of ex-NFL players. One named, actually, I'm not going to say his name. So is in San Antonio and dated a friend of mine. And dude watches cartoons all day. He took his money from the NFL, retired, and he got fired from the NFL. This is what's so bizarre and ironic. Once he had enough damage to his brain, he couldn't act proper. He couldn't do the job anymore. So they fired him because of the damage that he had been doing. They had told him, we need you to go harder. We need you to like hit harder. We need you to be taking the hits harder. He took those hits and then his brain could not, keep up neurologically. So then he gets fired and he has no backup plan, but he has the money. So he's living in San Antonio. He invests in properties. I won't go too far deeper. But as I got to, really hang out with him the last couple of years and just kind of coach him and work with him, I would be like, what is your normal day like for you? And he's like, I just go check on a couple of my properties. And then I was like, okay, let me ride around and just see what a day is like with you. Some of my clients, I do that. It's an immersive experience when I coach. So just so you know, it says that we're having issues connecting to Twitch. So I don't know if you want to
I've
take a
been
look at that,
checking.
Dutch.
Yeah,
seems to be okay.
I'm monitoring it. It's fine.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm seeing them too. Thank you though.
Perfect. So I asked him, let me take a ride with you. Took a ride. This dude literally just checked on his properties. He had property managers that were doing the job for him. Great, very good at delegating, thank goodness. Would get home and he would just watch cartoons for like 7-8 hours, like the same cartoons on repeat, and just sit there zoned out into these cartoons. And I was like, are we going to switch? Did you want to switch the channel? He was like, no, I really love these. And I was like, right, but it's on a loop now. Like we already watched this one. He's like, no, we haven't. Yeah, we already watched this one, bro. Like we already watched this 3 times. No, we haven't. His brain could not keep a short-term memory. And so I watched that very up close and, just talking with him about that expectation and what you would see as the double standard and the double kind of like the double talk, which is we want you to focus on your safety first. And as I pass it to you guys, I want to come back to the topic of what we saw back. This is not new. This has been going on for years. And the first time that I was kind of aware of some weird shit going on was when I used to watched Any Given Sunday, and I watched that movie, and they were like pushing, injections into people's knees to allow them to go, finish the plays in the movie. And I thought, this is just a movie. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in that. Tom Cruise is in that. No, is that the right movie? It's Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And Cameron Diaz. Okay.
Yeah.
Different movie. It's the Show Me the Money one. So
that is
that's
the one Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Okay, so 2 separate ones.
The one with Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx.
Jerry
and Al
Maguire.
Pacino is Any Given
Any Given Sunday, and then
Jerry Maguire,
Cuba Gooding
Tom
Jr.
Cruise
and
Cuba Gooding. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so those 2 movies is when I actually started to see, is this real? And started to kind of do my own research, and still cognitive dissonance. Just was like, you know what? I see a lot of, I'm looking at the internet. I see so much information that I see that this is fucked up. We talk about it when people get injured. We've seen all of the stuff. The thing with Tua happened, and I was like, this should have been ended. And then I'm over here double talking myself, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to write what I want to write online, but then I'm going to get back on and I'm going to watch it, and I'm not going to tell anybody, and I'm going to do my fantasy football. So I'm just trying to reconcile kind of where we land with that. And I'll pass it over to you guys for some other points, and then I'll get back to what I thought.
Go ahead, Dutch.
Well, I mean, I'm from Chicago, and like I'm trying to remember the player's name. But there was a old time Bears player who played in the 60s who used to be on The Score, which was Sports Radio 670. I want to say his name started with an H, but I keep thinking of Hub Arkish, and that's not who I'm trying to think of. But nonetheless, he would talk about, his playing days, and like, it was weird because he would kind of whine and complain about how guys would miss games. And they're like, well, my day, we got back up there. We rubbed we spit on our ouchies, and then we got back out there, and like it's a double-edged sword, because like you look at the dynamics of the NFL today, and like guys are getting injured quite a bit. It seems like quite a bit easier than they used to back in the day, despite all the technology. But a lot of this is because athletes are bigger and stronger now than they were 15, 20 years ago. Like if you could take a guy who is barely on an NFL roster right now, go back in time, if you were to send that guy 20 years back into the past, he probably would be a superstar in the NFL. But this, again, we have to continue to watch out for player health and safety because of two reasons. The first one, because they're human beings, and that's, and a lot of people, and this is kind of goes to something that me and Kim talk about a lot too, because this particular show isn't necessarily a political show. But this channel is a humanist channel, right?
Mm.
We believe in human beings. Let me see if I can change this. There we go. So I can keep you guys on the screen. Like we're about humanity, right? And which political party supports the agenda is irrelevant. People are what matter. And we have to continue to keep that focus. We see this. I've been highly critical of the WWE for a long time. I mean, speaking of CTE, Chris Benoit, he wiped out his entire family. Eddie Guerrero went and killed himself. You see how many wrestlers every year, you got 2-3 more wrestlers who die, well before their time. Now, some of them, it could be because of their wrestling, and some it could just be for other things, but there is, I would imagine that, I'm not an MMA fan, but I would imagine that 15, 20 years from now, we're going to start seeing some issues with MMA people passing away. The one that shocks me is like that we don't see this a ton with boxers, but what we do see with boxers though is that once they're gone from boxing, once they retire from boxing, a lot of these guys just end up like on the outskirts of society. Like you never hear from them again. And I think, and I think there's something to be said for that, because they're just not able to coexist in society, perhaps. And again, this is, I'm speculating. I'm not a doctor.
No, I think you're right. The person I talked about earlier, that's how he was.
And, so it's like, so I don't know, like, but the thing is like, I love sports, but at the same time, I care about people. And this is like business. Like all these people own these NFL franchises, own like your Lowe's of the world or your IBMs of the world and stuff like that. And they own these sport franchises as like their second gig. And it's like a fraternity to be an NFL owner.
A lot of times it's a tax write-off, Dutch. Eddie DiBartolo used the San Francisco Giants as a tax write-off for his big empire in construction. And they benefited from it because he poured every freaking dollar he could in there, for tax purposes. And they had a dynasty. So, it is a business. And I want to say that, I don't know if people will watch football when it's all robots, but before that, we're going to have, cyborg versions of humans. And can you imagine, what the hits are going to be like there? And people, it's like hockey, back in the day when I'd go to a hockey game, and this is like the Fort Wayne Comets. This isn't, something, but you'd be like, well, if there wasn't a fight or two, be like, well, damn, that was a crappy hockey game. You know what I mean? Like that, that's just, so I know that you said football, isn't necessarily violent. And I understand what you're saying about that, but we are a culture of, let's be honest, we're a culture of thugs. That's what humans are at their baseline from proto-human to human. There was a pecking order. And if you were anywhere behind that silverback, you were subject to getting the crap beat out of you. So, we come from a long line of violence, and we like violence. The Romans had the gladiators, and I love football. But, look, violent sports, risk of death. I was at the Indy 500 when I was in
no one ever talks about that.
Yeah, we were in the so there's the short chute coming between 3 and 4, turns 3 and 4, and I'm right down there at 4 on the fence line, and I can't remember the driver's name, Fittipaldi. Oh wait, no, that's well, anyway, this guy was the guy that was in the press first, in the media first, and he just smashed that car. And it blew all kinds of, stuff into us and everything. It was amazing that he walked away from it because of those roll cages. But, people are there for the circus, not just the sports, and that's something that we have to reckon with, because I love football, but I guess it would be silly if they wore those sumo suits, that people wear. But for God's sakes, like, he is what was his position? He was a defensive man, right?
Hamlin?
Yeah.
He was a safety.
A safety, right? Now that guy, my left leg is bigger than him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, those guys, they're not that big, some of them, right? And so you talked about some of the monsters of the midway down on the line that could swallow those littler guys for dinner. The impact of a 325-pound guy like me into a 225 or a 175, that's like a Mack truck hitting a VW. And, it don't do anything to me. It just bounces off. I don't need the gel pad, and I'm not being that silly because, of course, anything could happen. But, there's a lot of mass here. So,
well, you're going to get people that are going to tell you that a safety is not going to usually come into contact with the Mack truck. That's not what a safety does, right? So
right, because of the wide receivers, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. So in their mind, they're like, well, predominantly a safety is supposed to be going after receivers, stopping anybody who's going downfield. Really, that's what a safety's job is. So they're not like, a running back, like Dutch said, who's literally going up against that big line. Like when you're a running back, that you're plowing into 300-pound plus men. That is your job. Right. That's like you. So I think what you're saying, Dutch, even a lot of those running backs are not even bigger. Not Dutch, Rev. So even if we get some of those, oh my gosh, you don't know what a safety is, or you're not getting the point. But let's move the point over to then running backs with what you're saying, Rev. And let's just go with that.
I played tight end and fullback when I played football. So
yeah, so you know that part. It's like you're putting people in that they're going to be running into people. That version is people go, they chose that. They chose to put themselves in that position. They know that they're going to be going at it. Russell Wilson, he was a Seahawk. Obviously, probably should have stayed one. I don't know what my thoughts on that are. We'll talk about that another time. But he took a lot of sacks. And one of the things that he did was he worked out religiously so that his body could take most of what was going on. He did a lot of like defensive work because he's like, I know I'm going to get hit a lot. I don't want my head to take the bulk of that. Where I'm going to go with this is I understand where both of you are coming from because I feel it too. There's a double-edged sword here. I love football. Like I said, I might be one of those ones that, admit to saying like, oh my gosh, so much needs to be done. But then my ass is sitting there watching it, performance activism almost levels. And then there's the part of me that is what I'm licensed in. That's the INN after, my name on Twitter, if you follow me there. But I work in integrative health, and mainly what I specialize in is trauma recovery. And when I see the pebble effect, the ripple effect, we might see a guy that gets a couple head injuries and they may look fine for years. Again, Richard Sherman is what I'm going to use as an example, because Richard Sherman would get up after games and he was the Stanford guy. He graduated Stanford. He was the intelligence guy. He was the, I know more than you. He was kind of the narcissistic, but you still kind of liked him, depending on who you are. I'm just talking for myself. he could really speak to a lot of what he wanted to speak. He has a podcast now that is out. But over this last summer, he lost his mind a little bit. He was stalking his wife. He was in domestic violence issues. He got arrested for drunk driving. He had a lot of mental health issues. He was like on the verge of a nervous breakdown, if not in one, because they don't often give you the full story. And he finally started talking about these head injuries even more so than he was. When he was talking about adding that Thursday night game, and that was about 2 or 3 years ago, he was very passionate about that. And as someone who works in trauma, I always can read, not always, let's not be narcissistic here, Kim. I can sometimes likely read between the lines when somebody's so fucking passionate. When they're really passionate about something, Christians are usually the ones that kind of show me this. Like when a Christian man is like, honor thy wife, don't do this, homosexuality is a whatever. I'm like, you're either gay, bro, or you've been fucking somebody else. Because like you are screaming the loudest. And usually the Christians that scream the loudest got the biggest fucking problems. That's just my opinion. Y'all can come for me. I'm ready for it this week. But as opposed to that, comment, I saw him speaking a lot on this concussion issue. And he was speaking so much on it, so passionately. And I just kept thinking, he's really stuck on this. And come to find out, later it's because he felt like he was suffering from things. He was going through things. And rather than say, I'm suffering and I don't want to be less marketable, he just started to be a voice for the cause. But unfortunately, what we see is, you've got, like what you said with the WWE, you've got people who took out their whole family. Aaron Hernandez killed some people, killed himself. We have a couple ex-NFL players that have completely killed their wives, killed their families, that we don't see in the media because the NFL literally buries it. And also just mainstream media, they don't make as much money if the NFL's not there, so they don't talk about it as much. You've got people like, so we have Aaron is the one that I thought of, that was the most tragic that I thought of in the last couple of years. But there was a guy out of Florida that murdered his girlfriend. There's many men that are ex-NFL players. That's it. Thank you. And, you've got, was it Ray Baker? Is that the name of the guy that hit his wife? I think it was Ray Baker. Ray Rice, thanks. These last names, man, they really get me. So Ray Rice, that whole interaction, his wife was explaining that she also was, aggressive in their relationship. It wasn't just him. But in the moment that he speaks of in that elevator, he's like, my brain just couldn't take what was happening. So a lot of times what we see with trauma, and I'll kind of wrap my point here and land the plane, is a lot of times with trauma, especially in concussion type situations, CTE, anything like that, is a lot of damage to the frontal lobe of what we're seeing. So you've got spinal cord injuries that are more obviously pronounced. People can't walk. They have issues that you can see. But it's the damage that we don't see that we can't talk about as much. And it takes years for that to build up, years for people. They can drink, they can do drugs, and that will allow them not to show symptoms as much. But their families see it. So they'll hide it. They'll go out on Sundays. They'll play the game. They'll do what they need to do. They'll do the interviews, but their families are seeing it. So that damage to the frontal lobe there, this is where we regulate our emotions. And as a partner of somebody who has a TBI in this area from falling and having a seizure, I can tell you that we deal with a lot of that openly. We deal with a lot of issues with the traumatic brain injury. That's what a TBI means, for those of you that may not know that. So that traumatic brain injury can be anything. I personally have one of a small nature from back here from falling when I had the whiplash. So a person can get one from hitting the windshield of a car when they have an accident. They can get one from going out deploying in the military. They can get one from, like Dutch talking about baseball earlier. Many baseball players have gotten a traumatic brain injury by taking a line drive to the forehead or to the side. We've seen many MLB players be hit with a line drive to the side of their temple, instantly die. We've seen commentators hit by balls that flew astray and get hit in the side of their temple and die as well.
You
so
saw
there's
that girl get a few years ago. What was it, 8 years ago? The little girl got a fan at the hockey game.
Yeah. The puck that hit her.
Yeah, the puck hit her in the head.
Yeah. And so
Mhm.
every sport has these things. And one of the things that I think, we're not really all really focused on because it's not exciting is the traumatic brain injuries, the damage we don't see. So yes, the tragedies are always there. A little girl getting killed, something like that. But again, we don't go deeper. When the Ray Rice situation happened, no one really thought about, is this person in a situation of mental health? Has he, established way too many concussions? That his ability to regulate emotion and anger, not give any excuses, but the moment that his wife is badgering him and pushing him and hit me and fuck you and all that, was he able to regulate emotions? And then he just clocked her. I'm not giving any excuse. I'm just asking the question, right? It's just breaking barriers, asking the question. And then you've got other people like Richard Sherman that was like obsessed with his wife and wanted to get into his in-laws' house. And in that moment, I deal with crisis. If you ever watch my Twitter and you see me flying off to Texas or I'm over somewhere else, it's because I'm dealing with a crisis client. And that means that they're not regulating their emotions and they've done something or people, their family members cannot get them out of it. And I'm trained to walk people through that process. So to end this point here is that, I don't know where the discussion goes, but we do need to have this bigger discussion that we tend to focus on the players. We tend to focus solely on the players. And I think we should, of course, bettering the standards of the sports leagues that they're in, making sure that they have money in case something happens, making sure that they have concussion protocols on the side of the games at this point. But are we talking about the damage that it's doing to families? Are we talking about the hell and the trauma and the PTSD that kids are coming up in? Because NFL players, they're no different than anybody else. They got 3, 4, 5 kids too. They got some multiple wives, multiple baby mamas. And this is a widespread situation. And one thing stuck out to me as I looked up I was researching this today was, and I get chill bumps. So the man that died.
Just to clarify real quick, I think you mean NFL players have multiple wives as a community, not multiple wives each person.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No,
As a community.
Just
wait,
before someone
wives.
jumps in there.
I wanted to talk to the
Yeah.
preacher and all the NFL
Multiple
players.
wives. I actually meant baby mamas. So I got two things mixed up there. Multiple wives across the NFL are dealing with this. So multiple wives are in these little like silent secret clubs. I was friends with a lot of Seahawks wives when I was in Seattle and I was a photographer. I know that they have these little secret, kind of support groups. And then on the other side, there are some NFL players that got some multiple baby mamas as well. So multiple baby mamas that have kids that are dealing with this. So when I was looking at some of the articles today, one of the CNN articles said that there was a woman who messaged her, the friend I know, messaged her son and said, people act like they don't know what this feels like, but I do. And it was a woman. She's 77 years old, Sharon Hughes. She's the wife of Hughes, number 71 on the Lions, that died at the game that they continued to play. And her son was 1 year old. She got married to him in February. He died in October in the NFL. Her son was 1 year old when his dad died. And he has no clue, never grew up with a father, never got anything from the NFL. Nobody said anything. Nobody talked about his dad's memory. They kind of hushed it up. He's never been one of those like big talked about players because his death overshadowed how good he was in other areas. So his mom texted him and said, turn on your TV immediately. Now I have a point to this. People might go, oh, okay, well, like that happened. Of course she would turn it on. But what she said was, turn this on. He turns it on. They're watching it. And this comes to the trauma part that I'm talking about. She was speaking, this woman was 24 years old when her husband died. That means that's 53 years ago. So 53 years ago, this happened. She turned it on. She sat in disbelief of what she was watching, and she continued to talk to her son because she was having a traumatic reaction. That is how trauma stays with a person. So as we watch the faces of these men on the sidelines, as we watch the families that have to go through this, the mom that went with Hamlin last night to the hospital, as we saw Stefan Diggs take an Uber and, have to have Corey, the correspondent, vouch for him with the police officer to get into the hospital because he had to be there. Mentally, he could not deal. As we see some of the players that stayed back because they cannot move forward. We have to think about trauma, and we have to think about how this is affecting these young men's lives longer. So, Hughes died at like 25 years old. He had a whole life ahead of him. His son had no father, and his wife dealt with trauma the rest of her life. So the question that I would pose here as I pass it on is, how much money is worth a life? How much money is worth a child with no father or mother in other sports? How much money, when these people are negotiating their contracts and people say, oh, that's because if they break their leg, they can't play anymore, or they get Achilles, their knee is torn or their ACL is torn, they can't play anymore. But how many people say, how much money are we giving to this family in case something like this happens and their entire lives are ruined? If Hamlin doesn't come out of this, God, hopefully he does. They said today that he was, they were worried about some lung damage, but he had dropped down from needing 100% oxygen to only 50, which means he was breathing on his own. Good signs there for anybody who's watching. But how much is enough, and is there enough on a contract for a family who is going to deal with a death or a permanent injury like a paraplegic, quadriplegic, or a vegetative state?
Geez, that's a great question. And like, I don't have the answers to that because you can't put a dollar amount number on a human life, right? It's just not something that you can do. Obviously courts have done that. So, I mean, I would imagine that there's some judicial review that could take place or precedent that you could look to. The thing that I think I just want to, the sprinkles I want to put on that cupcake are that there are measures that are in place, and they're usually to protect the owners, right? To protect the team. All of these contracts are insured. So the teams are always looking out to make sure that if they have a player that's injured in any sport, and this is not just football, this is across the board, at least for the 4 major sports in the US. And I would imagine MLS has something like this as well. MLS being Major League Soccer, that we always protect the companies, and we almost never protect the people. And you can look at this in the workplace as well, right? Like if someone dies at work, let's say that someone dies in, like, I'm just making up a fictitious example here, in an Apple plant, they're not going to stop making iPhones because they still have to get that production out, right? And so I think we need to look at that as a society, and maybe sports can be the case study that we use to do that, because you have so many people that are emotionally invested in it. But sports aren't going anywhere. There's too much money involved in it. We're in a capitalist society, and it's not going to go anywhere because you have too many special interests that are involved. There's too many companies have hung their marketing campaigns upon an allegiance with one sport or another, be it UFC, NFL, NHL, NASCAR, whatever the case may be, even the Olympics. Like, as athletes become better and better, and breaking, the name of the show is Breaking Barriers, but as breaking records becomes more and more, difficult to do, look at like snowboarding. Like when I went snowboarding and skateboarding as a kid, I was getting 6 feet of air tops. Shaun White is up there like 45 feet. If he were to, if it's eventually a snowboarder is going to come down and hit that quarter pipe, from 35, 40 feet in the air, as these snowboards go faster and the players get higher and the ice is made slicker to get that speed, and everybody's trying to do that. And like, as an athlete, and I've been an athlete my whole life, I've never been a great athlete, but I've been a competitive athlete my whole life. I'm all about that. I get it. I love that part too. Humans are wired to compete.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that as a society, we've taken a look at what Kim said and said, what is the what is the price of a human of a human life to these organizations where it's like, well, we don't have any liability for it. He chose to be out there. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's the part about the conversation that, or then like and I'm not trying to vilify like the Bills here. I don't know what they're going to do, but like the Bills owner says, oh, I'm going to, hypothetical situation. Let's say the Bills owner is like, oh, you know what? I'm going to make a philanthropic donation to, this particular medical research team of $1 million. Great. But like, that doesn't really still answer the question. It doesn't solve the next problem. And they're going to go on making tens and 20s of millions of dollars off
Yeah.
of this. So we have
Hundreds.
to look out for the people. And, like it's that my last point here, and this is sort of related, but not 100%, is like the leagues are so interested in looking out for the owners that it translates into every single segment of what happens within the league. Key example of this, the Dolphins had that tampering with Tom Brady, and that got Brian Flores fired, where he didn't want to tamper in the offseason a couple years ago. And it cost Miami a first-round draft pick. That penalizes the organization, the fans, some college player who's now going to be the 32nd player selected in the NFL draft upcoming this year is now going to be a second-round pick instead of a first-round pick. That's millions of guaranteed dollars that some player is not going to get.
Yeah.
We may never know who that player will be, but we know who it won't be. But the owner, like he was fined, like, I forgot what it was, the exact dollar amount, but it was the equivalent of someone who makes $40,000 a year getting penalized $5.
Right.
Right. Like it was a big dollar amount, but to him, it was not. It
To
was like
him.
$5 to you and I. And they spend so much time protecting these elites and not the players. Do the players make money? Yes. But I got news for you. People who think athletes are overpaid, that's their job.
Yeah.
Okay. So you always say, oh, go work, but then they don't respect athletes for some reason. Like
But
athletes are
also,
somehow magically overpaid.
let's
And
think
we
about
need to
athletes
watch out for them.
spending their
Go ahead.
whole life. No, I didn't. I just wanted to add this. I don't know why I thought my brain would stop interrupting you. Athletes spend their whole life building for this. So you may have started working at 12, washing dishes or cleaning your business with your family, but like Rev's son's, looking to maybe get into something. Athletes have literally spent coaching. They are trying to get out of bad situations, marginalized communities sometimes. Some of them are very rich and they hire coaching, whatever it is, but they're conditioning themselves over decades before they even get drafted. They've gone to college. They've had to go through so much more. It is like a 20-year interview process for them. And so they are already mentally prepared to go into this knowing this is what their life is going to look like. This is what it's got to be like. The pressures on them is like more than anything you could even imagine, honestly. And then people are watching you every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and they're watching you fuck up. They're watching you make every little mistake. They're looking at your family lives. So I think it's really easy for people to say, oh, do your job. And it's like, cool, bro, go fucking like take a GoPro with you and do your job all the time. And let me see how you act. Like, let me see how you're doing those FedEx packages all day. And if you're throwing them out there, if you're just doing it precisely right. And are you like, taking little couple hits of marijuana while you're out at your job as well, so that you can handle it? Do you take criticism well? There's so much that we look at them so differently. And the other thing is, as we go on, like you said, this is a business. The more we hear drama, the more the league puts up these big tents. Like everything is theatrical with these motherfuckers. So they put these big tents on the sidelines. Like it used to be kind of in the locker room, but now they're like, oh, there's the concussion tent. So you can all see that somebody walked into the tent and they
Full of
walked out.
advertising.
Yeah, it's got like big fucking signs and everything on it. And if y'all don't think that's like what they're doing, like you're, living in whatever. And then the other thing is like the NFL is always got some way to spin this. There's always some bullshit. Like it was like No, the NFL last night was never talking about like a 5-minute delay. We don't know what's happening. Okay, then what the fuck was Joe Burrow over there practicing, getting ready to go out? And why was Stephon Diggs amping up the fucking defense to get back out on the field if they didn't think there was a 5-minute delay and they were about to go play again? And then the coaches had to go, all right, what's up? So we're not going to play the game. So the NFL is super fucking good at being like, we didn't say it. They know who to give the little drop the little like, oh, you need to go and say that. This is what we're not sure of. So they backed away from it and said, oh no, we never were ever gonna not stop the game. Y'all are fucking out of your minds. Until people they're something I do know because I've been connected to the people that work at Twitter. The NFL literally watches Twitter in real time. I know that for a fact. And when people are commenting on things that they should do, shouldn't do, there is a lot that goes into that, and they're watching Twitter in real time to see what people want them to do, not want them to do, and if it fits with their shit. So I think that canceling the game, I really don't know. I can't say if they were actually going to cancel it or not, if they had ideas of that. But let's look at it this way going forward. I'll wrap with this and go to you, Rev, so you can say your thoughts, and then maybe each of us could do our final thoughts for tonight on this in a more like longer way. But as we go forward, it is becoming a bigger business. So it's not like you said, Dutch, sports are not going away. That's not happening. And from a mental health perspective, I do want to add this. Like I said, I'm trying to reconcile watching this sport, watching sports, people getting injured, how I feel about it, the racism that the NFL has decades of fucking bullshit and shown. How do I reconcile watching something that I feel helps my mental health? It is a place that I zone out on Sundays. It is something that helped me when I was going through depression in Seattle after a miscarriage. There is like many, many thousands of people, millions of people actually, that will tell you that they look forward to this sport. It is how they connect with their family. It's how they connect with their friends. It's how when they feel less lonely. They feel like they have a purpose. They feel like they're behind something. They feel like they're excited when they read the stats. They're looking at new fantasy footballs. They're proud to put jerseys on. They're proud to stand up. I get chill bumps now just thinking of the playoff games that I watched the Seahawks come back from playing the Packers. And it was like a miracle game. We were down by 20 points. And in 5 minutes, we got into overtime and every right thing happened. We got the onside kick. We got all of these touchdowns. And Russell still threw some interceptions. And yet we still won that game. We lost the Super Bowl to some bullshit ass calls and some weird shit at the 1 yard line. We all know about that. But at the same time, that was a part of my mental health. But on the other side, when we lost the Super Bowl because of that 1 yard thing, my mental health struggled. It was painful. And you know what I thought one day? As I thought was like, if I feel like I cannot look at anything football right now because the Seahawks lost at the 1 yard line when Marshawn Lynch could have just ran that bitch in, and we didn't need Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson trying to give Russell the MVP awards and points for that. That's just a theory, but my pain point was watching football or any highlights. So I shut off Bleacher Report. I shut off everything. And through the whole summer, I didn't look at football. And then one day I thought, if this is painful for me as a fan, how fucking painful is it for the players who go through these things, these failures in real time, projected across our screens? So from both sides, mental health perspective, it has been a wonderful thing for me to fall into. Sinjin got into it at one point. He never used to watch football. And then he started getting into the Seahawks, and my son did. It was, it's just a family sport now. And then on the other side, I started thinking about what would it be like to live out my failures on this grand stage in front of everybody, but also do so with putting my body at risk. So like you said earlier, Dutch, there's not really an answer to these questions. It was more rhetorical when I asked it earlier because there isn't a price you can put on a person's life. And even in punitive damages, when you go to court, it's always some, scale that people have. So I don't think we can do that. But I do think that we have to start having more conversations about this. And there are other things that we can put into play. And when this does happen, continue to fucking call the league out. Continue to call out the bad actors and the bad people that consistently sit here and say, no, we put these in. Roger Goodell.
Roger Goodell.
Goodell.
I I was trying to decide what I could say that I would not get in trouble for because I know some stuff. So there's some stuff there that when I used to work with the Cowboys in Dallas, and some shady ass shit that I saw, and it never landed on him. I'll just say that. There was always like a couple people between things that happened. And there was like Jerry Jones involved in that. And there were some decisions made and some stuff and some move arounds and some things. And what I have witnessed is that Roger Goodell has always been very good at putting people between him. That's all I can say, because people are going to be like, how the fuck do you know? And you need proof. So that's what I'll say. But we've got to start at least calling it out. I mean, we're having the talk tonight about it. Twitter is all afire. And what was so wild to me is, though you said it was refreshing to see good points tonight, yesterday, when you saw that people were actually normal, and it was refreshing to see people having the right perspective, it still boggles my mind that those two fucking fuckity fuck groups, the anti-vaxxers and the this fucked with my fantasy football season, that is the most wild side that I got angry at, and I had to like shut it down, which was, this is a young man's life, and you are upset that you didn't make the right fucking choice and you put all of those players on one side, and you can't win your fantasy football, but his life might end or his career's over. And the fact that people put it like a 1-to-1 ratio, like this is just as bad for me as it is him right now. Like, oh, he'll be fine. He'll probably get out of it, but like my fucking season's over. That was the weirdest shit to read. And then as like you said, watching the anti-vaxxers come up so quickly, so fast, that just goes to show the state of where we are in that direction. I think that sports are going to be sports. Sports league owners are going to sports league owner. They're going to do what they do. But, you know, the message is going to have to be given at the child level. And I think of you, Rev. I think of, as you take your, and I'll go to you, as you take your son through this journey, and you decide if this is going to be something you want him to go into, if he decides that, the conversations that you're going to have with him about those decisions. How does he protect himself? How does he negotiate contracts for himself? Where does he put his life in the balance of these scenarios that could happen? And then on the bigger scale, the pressures that are seemingly like getting larger. So if you're older, like I'm 42, when I used to watch football, it used to be about like tackling and, you know, throwing the ball, deep ball, and the running back could be fast and kind of get through things. But now you have like the Russell Wilsons that can spin out of a pocket and get away from things and maybe take 75 sacks and still win a game, and Aaron Rodgers that can come back from anything. And then you've got, you know, a Marshawn Lynch that has earthquake type effects on people. And then you've got Patrick Mahomes that's like, you know, throwing the ball this way, can't even look at the person yet the ball gets there. There's this sensationalizing of sports now that is taking the pressure higher and higher and higher. And so while we're saying we want to take the pressure back, we want to protect our players more, we're actually adding more to it every time a person on TV, a commentator says, holy shit, Patrick Mahomes can throw the ball that way. Or this person, you know, is taking a hit super hard, or so-and-so is able to do an earthquake and the whole fucking stadium shakes. Or this, you know, this quarterback can get out of the pocket and run around. And this quarterback, Lamar Jackson, he rushes, he uses his legs. And we're going to like really tell him that that's a great thing, that he shouldn't be protecting his body as much because his fucking, you know, team isn't like playing. He's pretty much got to throw the ball to himself and catch it and rush it and tackle at the same time. So there's this sensationalizing of, you must be the Superman player. We saw that with Cam Newton. It did not work out for him very well. And so I just wonder how much bigger this is going to get. So it's like what I said earlier, and I'm going to end right here, which is the double talk, which is we are putting our players first. We want them to be protected, but also there's this other side of, we need you to be faster, bigger, use your legs, do more, you know, do crazy stuff, because if you don't, you're not as relevant, you're not as exciting, and people don't want to watch you.
I am absolutely way behind on football. I think I knew about half those names. Kim, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I'm just going to say Dutch, I think, has to go. He's got to see a man about a horse or something. So,
Yeah.
Dutch, if you want to do a quick wrap and then
Final thoughts.
jump out even, and then Kim and I can do some quick final thoughts or whatever. I know you need to land this plane.
Yeah, I think my and I appreciate you guys having me come on this show. I don't get on this show that much.
Yeah, we're excited.
I'll probably talk about this a little bit later when I come on stream later on my other channel, which is related to this channel, but at Dutch Jason, if you want to check me out there. But the main thing is, and the main idea of Dig on America is we care about people. We don't fucking care about companies. Like, that's not to say we want them to fail. Like, nobody wants someone to start a business and have it fail and have it impact their life, right? Nobody wants IBM to go out of business and have people lose jobs. We just want people to be able to have a fair life, fair opportunity, and have equity in our society. And we can't do that when we put corporations first. So care about the person. Like, don't just say, oh, thoughts and prayers to Devin Hamlin or to the next athlete who gets hurt, and not think about the impact that the circumstances or the injury or whatever the case may be may have on that person's life. Everybody, the Spider-Man saying comes to mind. Everybody loves a hero, but like Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe says to Tobey Maguire in the first Spider-Man movie, but what they love more than a hero is seeing a hero fail. And that just that's very true, because people are fucking toxic. And we need to somehow figure out a way to get over that as a society. We need to figure out a way to put people first, and not dollars, and not businesses, and not corporate interests, or whatever the case may be. People, because people are what matter. Whether they agree with you politically or not, you still have to fight for those people, even the ones who won't fight for themselves. And if sports and the companies behind them are going to stand in the way of that, then we just have to be louder. Because at the end of the day, people who are humanists are correct. And you could be a Christian and be a humanist. You can be an atheist and be a humanist. Doesn't matter. People come first. And all the rest of this stuff is great. But I'm not anti-sport. I'm not anti-making money. But people come first. And every person out there is somebody else's kid, husband, daughter, partner, etc. And that's just, and those are the people that we on this network will and always will advocate for. And that's what I hope that the listeners do too. What's best for the people? I don't have all those answers, guys. But as a community, I think we can figure those things out. And hopefully something like this can bring it, can help us take that step. And that's that.
Man, Dutch, that big heart of yours, I really feel you. And I thought, man, I'm not going to jump on a plane and you and I are going to burn down capitalism, but you didn't quite go there. But we can,
but I am gonna jump out though. Love you guys. I'll talk to you guys.
Thank you so
ASAP.
much for coming on.
But
thank you.
Chat soon.
We'll talk to you soon, guys.
Take care, man. Wow, Kim, that was a great show. I wanted to mention to the preachers and the NFL players to check out our show on ethical non-monogamy, since it sounds like they need, a little bit of a lesson on that. Some of them.
Polyamory. So you can check out the YouTube. The title is Polyamory. Probably learn a little bit.
Google relationship anarchy, and bring a lot of equity to your love life and to your home life. But that was a great show, and this is a great show and program, and it was really fun to have Jason on here tonight. And this is what I like about this. We talked about this before we jumped on, is this is a very political network, but this isn't necessarily, a political show. We definitely get into politics. Jason got into it. Look, I think the answer to what a lot of Jason was saying is because when are we going to X, be about people, and when are we
Yeah.
going to try to help people come to some decision making that isn't based on garbage that they see for profit on Fox News, or whether you believe CNN is garbage, whatever. But I mean,
Mhm.
those are for-profit companies. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars for 30 seconds of commercials. And so they're going to put on there what gets the views.
Yeah.
And all of these things, to be human and to care about humans, it's like monogamy. Let's say you have to choose to do it. It may feel natural to some people because of what they've learned or what they've been told, but anytime you want to do something that is to our benefit, you have to go against so many of the things in our evolutionary past that drive us to be what we are.
Yeah.
So to go beyond human, to take whatever that next step is for humanity, that's where you have to throw out all of the evolutionary crap in your head and make a choice to be something better and different. And I honestly, and I, not to be super political, but I don't think capitalism is going to get us there.
Yeah.
So that is a great conversation, for another day on this show or whatever, is, the politics of humanity surviving.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your final thoughts there, Rev. A lot to unpack and a lot to to think about as we head out tonight and we do land this plane. I just want to say thank you to the viewers that allow us to be us. We do really pride ourselves in being comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations. We don't have all the answers. We don't get it right, but the fact that you guys come here every week and we see friendly faces and friendly names, and we start to see, you building that journey along with us. It's really starting to make a difference in our topics and the way that we're going. So today, this conversation was a really good example of breaking barriers, which means that, we didn't have really answers for any of you, and not sure that you have answers for us, but we're here to have the conversation starters. We're here to pose the questions that we feel people should be having. So you have Dutch, and like you said, mostly anything can probably usually become politicized.
Yeah, but
And
that's being human.
Yeah, art can become political. I think you said that earlier, Rev, or maybe Dutch did, but in the pre-production. But I really think that it's important that we start the conversations. And the other thing, that was really important that I saw tonight is just three humans sitting here talking from different perspectives of knowledge of football, of knowledge of trauma, knowledge of capitalism, knowledge of corporations. And yet that is what we strive to show here at Breaking Barriers, which is people from all levels of education, background, ethnicities, and journeys, and even belief systems, because contrary to belief, we don't all believe the same things on Breaking Barriers. We have a wide range of political views that you will see over this next year. So I will end with this. I think that it's important that I wanted to get this point out earlier. I think that it's important that we do focus on what Dutch said, and so did Rev, and I'll echo those thoughts, which is we have to focus on the people. And just as much as the NFL has rules in place, okay? So the NFL has a rule in place that you have to wear the mouth guards and you have to wear your helmet the whole time. And you have to wear different things and you can't wear other things. I think that maybe the discussion in this, since we were talking about Damar Hamlin tonight, maybe the discussion starts to get open to do we start having some of those defensive players wear those Under Armour protection jackets that has the cover for their heart? Because if the fucking NFL can make as much money on a fucking jersey, I know when I bought Russell Wilson's and then I had to buy another fucking jersey because he switched and bailed ship. You know, I spent $125 on those jerseys. They are out there pimping out their players like there's no tomorrow. So if they can make all that fucking money, they can provide the gear for these men to wear, at least for them to, get to the point where they are at least protected in these scenarios. Because I think people are going to say, this is the one-off, it doesn't matter. You know, you're not going to see this very often. Does it matter? Like, does it matter? Do you think that Hamlin is going to say, my life didn't matter, so it's all good? Like, you know, people don't need to protect their hearts. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I think that if one person was saved over decades for wearing a protective suit, then yeah, I fucking think that we should be protecting each other and like speaking and getting the league to protect in those ways. And then from the other part is we need to start having the conversations about children from a younger age getting hurt. We don't talk about that often. You have children out there chasing dreams of LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes and all of these big names. Back in my day, it was Wayne Gretzky in hockey. I saw someone earlier speak to Dave Mira, I believe, if I can see that. Dave Mira, the BMX, Dave Mira, the X Game BMXer, also dealt with injury as well and trauma and what happened with him. Every sport has some person that people looked up to, wanted to be like, idolized, and you have children out there getting hurt. You have children out there that are not educated at the levels that they need to be about their bodies, the conditioning, how to protect themselves, what to do to take care of themselves. You have, even at this is maybe another show, you have coaches that are coaching fucking Little League like it's Major League Baseball. You got coaches acting like kids at 12 should be in the fucking NFL, and they don't care if they get hurt. I know, because I played softball, and like my own father didn't give it. He's like, get out there. So at the end of the day, I think that it is about the people. It is about calling out the corporations. It is about doing our part to have the uncomfortable conversations. So with that, I want to thank you for being here with us again on a Tuesday evening. Don't forget that you can catch me, Rev, Dino, more usually here on Tuesdays. I believe we've been starting at, is it 4 Pacific Standard Time? That's what we're going with. 7 Eastern Standard Time.
I think it's,
maybe?
It's somewhere there.
We'll figure it out and we'll let you know next week.
6 or 7
We'll get a little bit more of the
Central and
promo.
7
8 Central.
Eastern, something. Yeah, 7 Central. I
Okay,
think.
so 7 Central. All right, so 7. We'll just go with Central from now on. So you can catch us at 7 Central. Other places to watch us. So if you're at Twitch, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you are on YouTube Live, hi, welcome. But for those of you that are scattered different places, you can find us at Dig on America at most places. So twitch.com, youtube.com/Dig on America. Please check those sites out, because there's not just breaking barriers. We have, I think, some shows coming up. Rev might be going a different direction and doing his own thing. You've got The Left Angle with Lindsay and Dutch on Friday. We also have the show that they do on Wednesday with Mikey and I think Big Hoss. And then also you've got Lauren Hubbard on Sundays. So we have a lot of people. Attorney Anna's on as well. Lindsay gets to come on. Amani comes on with us every, if you met her last weekend, every second Tuesday of the month, I believe, maybe first or second. So we have a lot of shows that you might want to catch that might fit you a little bit more, or also might add to your experience here at Dig on America. If you would like to catch me, if you'd like to catch it live on Twitter, you can always find me at twitter.com/DearKimberlyK. I'm also on the other places as well. Dino Moore, you can find him at Dino Moore Films on Twitter. He's also our loyal co-host as well. And then Rev, where can people find you?
I am at Rev Mac Live everywhere. And like I like to say, if I'm not there, let me know. Better yet, sign me up, give me the password, and then I'm on that platform too. But yes, at Rev Mac Live everywhere. And I am very excited for the next few episodes of this program. It is so different and such fun. And I just want to thank Wheelie Snarky Dragon and Constance and Black Southpaw. And we had our friend in here.
Not Fearmonger. What is it?
Oh,
Constance
Killmonger Born. Yeah. And thank them for jumping into the comments. If you're watching this, on another platform, come check us out. But this kind of conversation is the kind of conversation we need to be having on all, the channels. I don't know who's that guy that gives a lot of money away and all that kind of stuff. Do an episode on that and give somebody a car or something.
Yeah.
But everybody needs to be talking about that. So breaking barriers, Kim, you are breaking them with this show, and I am so happy to be a part of this show. It is such a joy.
Well, thank you so much. And as we head out tonight, I just want to say thank you again to Dutch for dropping in. He's always good to come in clutch last minute for us. And Rev, you have been a delightful addition to Breaking Barriers, showing people that this is exactly what we want to do, is just have the conversations. And when you said earlier, I'm behind, I don't know all these names, that was the perfect line, because that is exactly what we are about here at Breaking Barriers. You do not have to be caught up, but we do want you to feel comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations. And if you may not know something from, race relations to homosexuality topics, or LGBTQ community, not homosexuality, sorry, sexuality comments, or like we said, polyamory, or what was it? Anarchy, not love anarchy. What'd you call it?
Oh.
I love this.
Relationship anarchy.
Relationship anarchy, or it's about Monday Night Football. This year, as we close this out, just get ready for some very interesting, controversial at times topics. Next week, we'll be back with New and Now, which is our in the moment trending topics for the first 15 to 20 minutes. And then we will start bringing on some different guests in the past. So you'll see a lot of Desiree Cruz probably back. Amani will be back on. We'll have some political guests, as well as some guests that are very educated in their field. So we're very, very excited for this new year and the production that we put in place to go forward. So if you would like to do us a big favor and tweet this out, or even catch the YouTube when it goes up and tweet that out. If you can't watch it live, that's okay. We still appreciate you. If you can't do anything else, just show us some love by liking a comment on Dig on America and Killmonger Reborn. We will let Amani know that you loved her. And as far as Will Snarky Dragon goes, thank you for so much that you have shared. We will definitely look at maybe covering some of those topics in a future episode. So having said that, we hope you have a great night. And I will let Rev take us out. But thank you so much for bringing us all together here in your own way each week in the comments. You guys add a layer to Breaking Barriers that we would not be able to do without you. So keep those comments coming. Keep your personalities and your attitude coming, because we love it and we would not be the same without you. Having said that, I'm going to now end my comment and throw it over to you.
Well, thank you, Kim. Look, my phone just told me I need to go to sleep. And then just before that, I got a text. I have been elected Speaker of the House. Can you imagine? Wouldn't that be nice if they could have gotten it done today? But
no,
of
course not.
I was having some fun there, because they need somebody. I'll take the job. I would.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine? Like, we have, perfect example as we go to leave. Like, there's not enough time in a day to talk about the shit show that is America, or I mean the United States of America, because there's bigger Americas. But
yes,
just the fact that McCarthy, I just kept watching that vote go down today, and I was like, oh, the shit show has begun. So anyway, not our circus, not our monkeys, but eventually
on other shows on here, I am sure. But
for sure.
Yes, I am Revolution McKinnis for Dino Moore and Kimberly Kay and the great Dutch Treat himself, Jason Dutch, and all the folks on this platform. And I saw Mikey was in here. This is just a great place to be. Share it with your friends. We got a subscriber tonight, Wheelie Snarky Dragon. So thank you for being a subscriber. And I'll be able to get my sew in now. I'm going to let this hair grow out a little bit so I can get my Mel Gibson. And you can Google me. I used to have nice long hair, but this has been a joy. And I can't wait till next week. Check out all our other menu items here on the platform. Kim, much love to you and your family. And we will see you all as I end the broadcast next week.